The marble floors of the Palazzo Devereux were cold, but they had never felt cruel until the night Lucia Moretti was dragged across them. She had spent 33 years walking these corridors, first as a night custodian's daughter, polishing the brass fixtures while the city slept, and later as a foundation's most brilliant conservationist. She knew the crack in the fourth column of the rotunda better than she knew her own reflection. She knew which galleries smelled of old turpentine, and which walls of the secret routes the Devereux family used to move art during the war. She knew everything about this place. But she hadn't known that the man she loved would stand by and watch her destroy it. It happened on the night of the Centennial Gala. Florence's elite had gathered under the gilded ceilings, dukes, bankers, ministers, and actresses. The air smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. The foundation was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and tonight was supposed to be its salvation. A rediscovered Renaissance masterpiece, the Weeping Saint by a forgotten student of Michelangelo, was being unveiled. Lucia stood in the shadows of the service corridor, her black evening dress simple and unadorned, watching the guests arrive. She clutched a leather folio to her chest. Inside was a report she hadn't wanted to write, a report that confirmed her worst fears about the painting. She wasn't there to celebrate. She was there to warn him. Alessandro Devereux, the new chairman, the man who had once sat with her until 3 a.m. in the restoration lab, drinking cheap espresso and debating the merits of 16th century glazing techniques. The man who knew that when Lucia touched the canvas, she didn't just see paint, she felt the centuries of hands that had touched it before. She saw him near the podium, looking handsome and exhausted in his tuxedo. His mother, Alessandra, stood beside him, her spine rigid as a statue. On his arm was Contessa Beatrice Lorraine. Beatrice was diamonds and ice. Her family owned shipping lanes and banks across Europe. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It rarely did. She looked at the museum the way a lion looks at a wounded gazelle. Before we see the trap spring, if you are captivated by stories where the underestimated finally rise, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This is a story about silence, betrayal, and the kind of justice that echoes in marble halls. Lucia moved toward Alessandro. She needed to speak to him before the unveiling. The painting was a fraud. She had seen the underpainting under UV light. It was a modern chemical composition, cleverly aged, but a forgery nonetheless. Alessandro, she said softly, stepping into the light. He turned. For a second, the mask of the chairman slipped, and she saw the man she knew. He touched her elbow, a gesture that was too intimate for the public eye. Lucia, not now, he whispered. The donors are watching. The Lorraine family is essential to the merger. If this doesn't go well, the bank takes the building. The painting is a lie, Lucia hissed, her voice urgent. I have the spectral analysis. The pigment dates to 2021, not 1520. If you unveil this, you are committing fraud. Alessandro froze. We can't stop it. We have the contracts. Beatrice's brother Laurent secured the donor lines based on this valuation. You are selling a lie, she said louder now. A hand touched her shoulder. It was Beatrice. Her grip was strong, her nails digging into Lucia's bare skin. Is there a problem, darling? Beatrice asked, her voice like silk over a knife. Alessandro, the curators are waiting. I have proof, Lucia said, pulling the folio open. I have the scans right here. Before she could show him, a commotion erupted near the main display. Laurent Lorraine, Beatrice's brother, stepped forward. He held a tablet, his face a mask of theatrical panic. Security, Laurent shouted. Stop her. She's tampered with the archives. The room went silent. The music stopped. 200 heads turned toward Lucia. Lucia looked at Laurent, confused. What? Laurent pointed a manicured finger at her. I just received an alert from the Digital Provenance Archive. Someone using Ms. Moretta's login altered the authentication records of the Weeping Saint 5 minutes ago. She's trying to devalue the asset. That's impossible, Lucia stammered. I haven't touched the digital archive. I was coming to tell you the painting is fake. Beatrice stepped forward, shaking her head in mock sadness. Oh, Lucia, the custodian's daughter. We knew you resented the new direction. But to try and destroy the foundation? To try and extort us? I am trying to save it. Lucia cried out. She turned to Alessandro. Sandro, tell them. Tell them about the scans I just showed you. The silence stretched. Alessandro looked at his mother. Alessandra Devereaux gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. She looked at the bank representatives. She looked at the press. Alessandro looked at Lucia. He saw the desperation in her eyes. He saw the truth. He knew she was incapable of fraud. But he also saw the millions of dollars in rescue funding hanging by a thread. He saw the Devereaux legacy crumbling if he admitted they had been duped by a forgery. He looked away. I don't know what she's doing, Alessandro said, his voice hollow. I haven't seen any scans. The words hit Lucia harder than a physical blow. You're lying, she whispered. Search her, Laurent commanded. The security guards, men Lucia had known for years, looked at the floor in shame as they took her arms. They didn't find the scans Lauren's accomplice had already pickpocketed the folio from her bag during the distraction. Instead, they found a brass key on a leather cord around her neck. What is this? Laurent sneered, yanking it off her neck. A master key? Access to the vault? It was my father's, Lucia said, her voice trembling. It's personal. It's evidence, Beatrice declared. She tried to rob us. Get her out of here. They didn't just fire her. They perp-walked her. The flashbulbs blinded her as they escorted her out the front doors, not the service exit. The headlines wrote themselves, Museum Heist Foiled Curator's Daughter Arrested. They stripped her of her credentials in the boardroom the next morning. They blacklisted her from every cultural institution in Italy. For 3 days, Lucia didn't leave the small apartment she had inherited from her father. It overlooked the Arno River, but the beauty of the city felt like a mockery. She had given her life to the preservation of history, and history had crushed her. She sat on the floor of the cluttered living room, surrounded by her father's old books. He had been the night custodian for 40 years. He had loved the museum more than the family that owned it. He had taught her that art was the only truth that outlasted the lies of men. She touched the empty space on her neck where the key used to hang. They had taken it. They had taken everything. Or so they thought. Her father had been a hoarder of paper. Lucia began to sort through a stack of boxes she had never opened, looking for old photographs to burn. In the bottom of a dusty tea chest, she found a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. It was heavy. She unwrapped it. Inside was not just a duplicate of the brass key, but a letter. The envelope was heavy cream stock, stamped with the Devereaux family crest. But the handwriting wasn't her father's. It was shaky, spidery, old. To Lucia Moretti, it began. If you are reading this, I am gone, and my grandson has failed to protect you. Lucia's breath hitched. It was signed Vittorio Devereaux, Alessandro's grandfather, the patriarch who had died 2 years ago. My family has become a business, Lucia. They see canvas and see currency. You see canvas and see souls. You are the only one I trust. I know what my daughter-in-law and the Lorraine family are planning. I know they intend to leverage the Foundation's debt to strip the collection. They do not know that the Foundation's charter contains a heritage codicil. In 1920, my grandfather placed a clause in the trust. No sale, no transfer, and no authentication of the core collection is legal without the signature of the keeper of the archives. For 50 years, that role was ceremonial. Today, I have appointed a new keeper. It is you, Lucia. Your father safeguarded the secret transfer ledgers during the flood of 1966. He saved the lives of the art when the water rose. You are his daughter. You have the site. The key opens the archive room in the North Tower. The ledgers prove the Lorraine fraud. The law is on your side. Do not let them bury the truth. Lucia read the letter 3 times. Her hands were shaking, not with fear, but with rage. Cold, clarifying rage. She wasn't just a fired employee. She wasn't just a victim. She was a legal custodian of the museum's soul. Lucia didn't go to the police. The police were bought by the Lorraine influence. She needed something sharper. She found Matteo Rossi sitting on a bench in the Piazza della Signoria, feeding pigeons. Matteo was the Foundation's retired legal counsel. He had been pushed out by Alessandra Devereaux when he refused to sign off on irregular acquisition contracts. Matteo, she said, sitting beside him. He looked at her, his eyes roomy but sharp. They say you tried to steal the St. Lucia. They say a lot of things, she replied. She showed him the letter. Matteo read it. A slow smile creased his weathered face. The heritage codicil. I thought it was a myth. A ghost story Vittorio used to scare the board. It's real, Lucia said. And so is the forgery. I need to get back into the restoration wing. I need the infrared scans I took before they were deleted. You can't go in the front, Matteo said. But you know the tunnels. She did. The drainage tunnels the custodians used. The ones her father had walked every night. There's one more thing, Matteo said, lowering his voice. The proof of the forgery isn't just in the paint. It's in the money. Laurent Lorraine routed the purchase funds through a shell company. If we can prove he knew the painting was fake when he insured it, it's not just fraud. It's RICO. It's prison. Help me, Lucia said. Vittorio would have wanted this. Matteo nodded. The board thinks they've won. They think Lucia is gone forever. But the best reversals are the ones built on secrets the powerful forgot to check. Stay with me, because the tribunal scene is about to change everything. 10 days later, an emergency tribunal was convened at the Palazzo Vecchio. The foundation was petitioning the city to approve the sale of the Weeping Saint to a private collector in a sale that would wipe their debt and line the Lorraine pockets. Alessandro sat at the center of the long table. He looked exhausted. Beatrice sat on his right, radiating triumph. Alessandra presided over the meeting like a queen on a throne. This is a formality. Alessandra declared a room full of officials and press. The sale proceeds. The funds will secure the future of the Devereaux legacy. And the fraud investigation? A government official asked. A misunderstanding. Laurent Lorraine spoke up smoothly. The former employee, Lucia Moretti, was mentally unstable. She doctored the files. We have cleared the provenance. Then you won't mind if we finalize the transfer today, Beatrice added, placing a gold pen on the contract. Sign it, Alessandro. Alessandro picked up the pen. He looked at the paper. He looked at the empty seat where Lucia used to sit during meetings, always in the back, always taking notes. Do it, son, his mother whispered. He lowered the pen. Aye. The heavy oak doors at the back of the hall groaned open. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. A figure stood in the doorway, backlit by the Florentine sun. Lucia. She was not wearing the simple black dress of a servant. She wore a tailored charcoal suit. Her hair was pulled back tight, revealing the sharp angles of her face. She didn't look broken. She looked like a blade. You cannot sign that document, Lucia said, her voice calm and clear. Alessandro stood up, knocking his chair back. Lucia? Security. Sit down, Alessandro, Lucia said. She walked toward the table. 2 carabinieri moved to intercept her, but Matteo Rossi stepped out from behind a pillar, holding up a legal writ. This woman has standing, Matteo shouted. Under Article 4 of the Foundation Charter, this tribunal must hear the keeper of the archives. The keeper is dead, Alessandra scoffed. Vittorio held that title. Wrong, Lucia said, reaching ahead of the table. She placed a heavy leather binder on the polished wood. It landed with a thud that silenced the room. Vittorio transferred the title. Legally. Witnessed. Notarized. 3 years ago. She opened the binder and slid a document toward the government official. Read the heritage codicil. No sale of core assets is valid without my signature, and I will never sign this one. You have no authority here, Beatrice hissed. You're a disgraced thief. I am the only reason this museum is still standing, Lucia replied, her eyes locking with Beatrice's. And I am here to show you what you really bought. Lucia pulled a remote from her pocket. She pointed it at the large screen behind the board. Exhibit A, she said. The screen flickered to life. It showed the Weeping Saint. But it wasn't the visible painting. It was the infrared reflectogrammed image beneath the paint. The room gasped. Beneath the face of the saint, hidden layers of paint spelled out a signature, not a Renaissance name. It was a modern graffiti tag, a specific, stylized X that the art world knew belonged to a notorious French forger arrested in 2019. The underdrawing is modern, Lucia explained, her voice steady. The pigment analysis, which I conducted 3 weeks ago and which Laurent here deleted from the server, shows traces of titanium white didn't exist until 1921. She clicked the remote again. A financial document appeared. Exhibit B, the purchase receipt for the canvas. Bought by a shell company in the Caymans. Registered to Laurent Lorraine. Lauren's face went pale. That is a lie. The bank records were subpoenaed this morning by Judge Ricci, Lucia said, nodding to Matteo. You bought a painting for 50,000 euros. You forged the provenance. And you tried to sell it to the foundation for 40 million, using your sister's engagement to the chairman to push it through. The room erupted in whispers. The government official was reading the codicil, his eyes widening. This is authentic, he murmured. She has veto power, absolute veto power. Alessandro looked at the screen, then at Lucia. He saw the truth. He saw the trap he had walked into. He saw the damage he had allowed. Lucia, Alessandro said, stepping around the table. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know it was that fake. I thought we were just inflating the value. I didn't know they set you up. You knew I was telling the truth about the science, Lucia said, her voice devoid of warmth. And you let them drag me out. You let them call me a thief. I had to protect the family. He pleaded. The family? Lucia gestured to the room. Vittorio was family. My father served his family. You are just a name on a banking charter. You don't protect history. You liquidate it. She turned to the official. I am invoking the codicil. I am vetoing the sale. Furthermore, I am submitting these records to the prosecutor's office for fraud and embezzlement charges against Laurent Lorraine and Beatrice Lorraine. Beatrice stood up, knocking her chair over. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? My father will. Your father's on the phone with the finance ministry right now, Matteo Rossi interrupted, holding up his ringing cell phone. They're asking about the missing tax revenues from your brother's shell company. Beatrice looked at Alessandro for help. Alessandro looked at his mother. Alessandra Devereaux sat frozen, her face a mask of horror as she realized her legacy was dissolving in front of her. The carabinieri moved past Lucia. They didn't arrest her. They moved toward Laurent. Laurent Lorraine, an officer said, you are under investigation for forgery and wire fraud. As Laurent was handcuffed, the press surged forward, cameras flashing just as they had when Lucia was thrown out. But this time, the flashes illuminated her strength. The tribunal room cleared slowly. The media was outside, swarming Beatrice and Laurent. Alessandra remained seated, staring blankly at the table. Her reign was over. Alessandro lingered. He stood by the window, looking out at the city he had almost sold. Lucia was gathering her papers. She moved with a quiet efficiency. Lucia, Alessandro said, the codicil. It gives you control of the board. It gives me control of the collection. She corrected. The board is being restructured by the ministry. Your mother is stepping down. And us? He asked. The question hung in the air, heavy with years of unspoken words and recent betrayal. I made a mistake, a terrible one. But I love you. I have always. You are the only one who understands. Lucia stopped. She looked at him, really looked at him. Understanding requires listening. Alessandro, she said softly. And when I spoke, you covered your ears to protect your money. I can fix this, he said, stepping closer. I can resign. I can work for you. I can prove I'm not like them. Lucia shook her head. You are exactly like them, Alessandro. You just feel guilty about it. That doesn't make you noble. It just makes you sad. She picked up the leather binder. Vittorio trusted me because I don't need the money. I need the truth. You will never understand that difference. Where do we go from here? He asked, his voice cracking. Nowhere, Lucia said. She walked toward the door. You go back to your banks. I go back to my museum. She paused at the threshold, the light from the corridor washing over her. The foundation will survive, Alessandro. But the us you think you remember? That died the night you looked away. 3 months later, the museum reopened the East Wing. The Weeping Saint was gone, replaced by a modest exhibition of restored sketches, real ones. The attendance records were broken. Lucia walked the gallery floor. She wasn't in the shadows anymore. She wore a silk blouse, the color of deep burgundy. She stopped to adjust a frame. A young intern approached her nervously. "Director Moretti, the restoration team needs your signature on the Raphael acquisition." "Director," Lucia repeated, liking the sound of it. "It'll be there in a moment." She looked out the window. Down on the street, a black sedan was pulled over. Alessandro was standing by the car. Looking up at the window, he looked thinner, tired. He raised a hand in a small, hesitant wave. Lucia didn't wave back. She didn't need to. She turned her back on the window and walked toward her office. She had a legacy to protect. Justice isn't always about revenge. Sometimes, it's simply about proving that your value was never defined by their opinion. If Lucia's story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We tell stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and the women who survived them. Thank you for watching.